Welcome to Math in the AM. This is the Digits and Diamonds team going at it. Big shout out to Vitamin R, Pepito, Papito, and Max. Okay. All you guys just tuning in, sit down and buckle up. We're going to talk about square roots of perfect numbers. Okay, first thing is, what does it mean to square a number? We've already talked about exponents. So what does it mean to square a number? I see 7 squared. You say 49 because it's 7 times 7. Not plus, it's 7 times 7. Okay. Now, I can even put this down, but if you know it's 49, go ahead. What I'm going to get you guys to do, though, is in the margin, you don't have to put this direction. So this you don't have to copy. List the first 15 perfect squares. I actually think you probably know the first 10. It's good to know the 15. And when I say in the margin, sort of, in that little line, right? On your paper, just put it on the left side of your page right now. So you can continue this. I don't need to show you, what the first 15 digits are. I'm going to give you guys a moment. You might get bogged down by the time you get to the 11th square. We'll double check your answers in a minute. Okay? I'm going to pause the video. You guys are going to do this. Okay? So I'm going to run through these. And somebody's already mentioned they had a parent that had them. This is sort of what I'm getting at. I'm going to put this on the left margin of my paper. Or I asked you to put this on the left margin of your paper. I'll get real angry. So 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3. Okay, let me scroll. Good. 100. Okay, now those I hope actually you knew those without thinking too much. You might think a little bit more. What's 11 times 11? 121. 12 times 12? 44. 169. 225. Now, I would think that these 5 answers are the ones you have to actually memorize. I think you probably know the other ones fairly well. Yes? Yeah, I don't know why I put 224. You're right. Thank you for catching that. You know what my problem is, and I told you guys this before, I'm talking at the same time. You were thinking, you caught that. Thank you. Okay. Have them memorized. It makes your life a little easier, okay? And it's a lot quicker because it's mostly the lower ones that we need. Just catching that 144 is a perfect square. Saves you a bit of time in checking. That's all. Okay. I'm going to hand some graph paper out. And I'm just going to flip this page here. Don't worry. Okay. These same things. But what we're going to do is work on the graph paper. And I'm going to just pause this. We're going to have graph paper by this. We kind of had a introduction to this because we've already played around with exponents. Right? So perfect squares are what we really want to know. We've listed the perfect squares. Try to internalize them and know them. Now, the reason why I handed this out is I want you to be able to construct some meaning behind a perfect square. If I make a perfect square, that means both sides are the same. So I'm going to use 6 by 6, okay? So I'm going to color in, or at least the perimeter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You too, yeah. I'm going to say this side is 6, and 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. No need for a ruler. We're just doing this to learn something. Okay. Who is that? inside the tab, see the graph paper? That was good. Right around this. You said you started this stuff, right? Perfect squares? Good. So join right in and it'll reinforce what you might already know. Okay? Okay. So you don't have to shade it in heavier. Let's pay attention. Okay? So when I say pay attention, I want to see eyeballs. If you're still just, because it shouldn't take you too long to go 6 by 6. Are we good? You're 6 by 6? Okay. Now, have you labeled the length and the width? 6 and 6 squares. You can pretend they're centimeters, I really don't care. Now, what is area? What's the formula for the area of a square? Or rectangle? What? Width times the length. Base times the height. 6 times 6. What is 6 times 6? What is that describing? Okay, I'm going to put the answer in here. 6 times 6. 6 squared. I'll put it here. Is equal to 36. If I was to stop, count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I was going to count up all the squares, how many squares would there be inside? 36. That is literally 6 squared. If you make a square with 6 on the left side and 6 on the top side or bottom side, base and height, we'll have 36 square units inside. That could be center. That's the math. So that's why it's called the square. So going backwards, it's called the square root. If I have a square, it has to be a square, not a rectangle, that is 36 square inches, square feet, square meters, square centimeters. What length is the side? That's the opposite question. I go back. It's called the square root. But before we get to the square root, I want to draw one other thing. What if we're talking about fractions? And I'm going to show a fraction with this. I'll use different colors. I'm going to draw a big square of 10. I'll just do a few over. You too. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I'm going to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I do. Okay. Can you put it 2 squares down, 4 squares down, whatever? It doesn't matter. Exactly. I just want 10 on the one side and 10 over. 10 up and down, 10. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, see? I can double check. Just box it in. Don't shave heavy or anything like this. It takes too much time. Now, I'm going to make this a fraction and see what it means. I'm going to only go 7 with my second box. Now, there's a reason. I'm trying to figure something out. I'll let you draw this first, and then we'll get some numbers behind this, okay? Draw exactly what I have here. Don't shade everything in or anything like that. Draw a box inside the box. A 7 by 7 box in one corner, and a 10 by 10 box on the outside. I'm watching just to see that you work. If you have a pencil and a pen, you can use that as 2 different colors if you want. You don't have to. It makes more meaning to you. All right. Now, what I'm representing on the left side is the green box. I'm not even looking at the box actually. Right now, I'm only looking at this length. If I was to make that into a fraction, the green compared to the long red distance, what is the fraction that represents? 7 out of 10 squares, right? Green, 7, red, 10. And I know where you're going. So I'm going to call this side 7 out of 10. And likewise, it's a square, so I'm going to call the top side, same reason, 7 out of 10. Okay. Okay. Area-wise, length times width, base times height, however you want to call it, it would be 7 out of 10 squared, right? I'm using color systems just so you know what I'm referring to. 7 out of 10. And I'm going to put a bracket around it because the whole fraction is squared. When I do that, you remember what the square, it goes to the top and to the bottom. So it's 7 times 7 on the top, numerator. What's that? Okay, because we have these memorized, and if you're not, you're going to get more familiar with it. 10 times 10 is 100. Now, the arithmetic is fine. If I was to stop now and count all the little squares inside the green part, different person, someone from this area here, how many green little squares in the green part? Yep, 49. If you don't believe me, stop and count. And in the whole black part, the biggest thing, there's 100 squares, right? That's the area. That's what a fraction could be. Now, another way of doing a fraction is a decimal, right? You remember what 7 out of 10 is as a decimal? We call it, it's our place value. What is our position? 0.8. 0 point what? This is 7 out of 10. What is it as a decimal number? 7. It goes 7. Okay, what do we call that first position behind the decimal? You know how it's like before the decimal, it's ones, tens, hundreds. What is it behind the decimal? Do you remember the names? The decimals. If I go like this, 0.529, and I say, what place value is the 5? Tenths, hundredths, thousands. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that for a second. And remind us that, hey, this makes sense. Decimal 7 is in that tenths position. That's what 7 out of 10 really literally means. And I'm going to say this is also 7. Okay, why? Because sometimes we have decimals and we're finding an area. What does that mean? Well, it really means 7 out of 10. But we like the decimals. They're easier to work with. And when I do, I'm going to put this here, and you're going to just draw this here. 0.7 squared is equal to 49 out of 100. So that's 0.49. It's the same information, but with decimals. You have the drawing there. But if I started with the decimals, you'd probably be confused. Hello, buddy. You're welcome. I'm going to just leave this till tomorrow. I'll put a paper clip on it. Good. I don't want to misplace his thing. It's pretty important. I've got to put his name. Okay. Now, are we with me on the decimal 7 squared, decimal 49? Okay. Just trying to make some sense of it. Now the square root, you're going to write this down, is the opposite of a square. And I'm going to show you some symbols, but first write this down. Okay? Go ahead. You have a symbol, and your calculator has the symbol. It undoes the square, the opposite of the square. So we already know the answer. I purposely used it. Okay, just trying to get a symbol. It's this symbol. Now, I put a little tail at the end, just to say that this 36 is all inside. This means the square root. The square root of 36. It means if I have a square that's 36 big, that's the square area. What is the side? 6. You're aware of this, right? I forgot to update the pen. I'm going to pause my recording. 0.2. Okay. Raise this. Okay. The check mark thing on your calculator, try it out. I'm giving you guys time to try it out. Most calculators, depends on your brand, you press the square root button first, and then it'll go back. That's the whole point of school. Learn stuff. Okay, somebody, yeah. Don't divide by 2. That's different than squaring. Yep. Try it out. Yes, 36, but 36 divided by 2. Not sure if you're going to need, just hang in here for a few minutes. If you do, okay. Now, this is another one we already have the answer to. You don't even need to write out the sentence if you now know what this means. 49 over 100. Underneath this, we have the diagram above. If you have a square of 49 out of 100, what was it that was squared to give you this answer? We're talking backwards, right? And we know from the diagram above, it was 7 on the top, 10 on the bottom. And we know what it could mean in a picture, right? Okay, that's all cool. Now, Duncan said that you have to. Yeah, you did. Well, good on you. Duncan said he has to get going, and I do have to get going. So I'm going to point some up here. Okay, we talked about this. Here's the calculator's square root key. You don't even have to write this down. I'm just telling you. Okay? Use the square root button if you have decimals. I'm not going to make you figure out decimals. Okay? If you have whole numbers, integers, or fractions, try to do it. You can do it with the calculator, but I want to show your work as if you did. Okay? Now on the text, page 11. Think, like I'm waiting for you. Page 11, text. Open up. Look up. Not anyone else. Not a record. Okay. Back to me. Okay, 3A, I want to start the assignment with, and I'm starting with 3A because it's a decimal. Okay. Then I'm going to turn you loose. The other two are fractions, so I think you know how to do them. Yourself to yourself. Well, this is a notebook kind of assignment, okay? No, you do it in your note, like your notes. Yep. This you write down. Page 11. Right here. Page 11. You were taking notes, weren't you? I know you were. So just do this right below this because this is yeah. Well, however you like to organize. Everyone's a little different. But anyways, decimal 25 under a square root sign means I said you could use a calculator for these, but do you guys recognize decimal 25 as a fraction? What would you say if I said decimal 25 dollars? How many cents is that? 25 cents. And do you ever hear old people like me call 25 cents something other than that? It's a fraction. a quarter. Okay. Why? Because 1 divided by 4 gives you decimal. If I drew 4 squares, and this is what I'm talking about here. This one's tricky because it's a decimal. This is why I'm doing this for have it done. I say, okay, decimal 25 is 1 out of the 4 squares shaded in. Okay, I could just draw a little sketch like that. If you wanted to, you can use the grid paper I gave you for the drawings. Hey, when I do the square root, if I hit the button on the calculator, it gives me decimal 5 as the answer. Done. Why? Because square that is 1 unit big, well, half of it times the other half gives me decimal 25. This is where this all comes from. Do it in a hurry because I do have to get going. Now, what I want you guys to do, page 11, and we're going to work on this tomorrow, but for the next 20 minutes, this H will be, I'm pretty sure you're cool with square roots and stuff. You can pay attention. I'm going to get you guys to work on this, okay? Sure.